Pastor, do you want to speak to the ministers? You had a speech that was outstanding, but what I found a lot of times is that it's the ministers, it's the churches that don't understand this stuff, and that you had a message to them, a very strong message.
Well, I think my message to them is to stand up and defend the children, not only of their members, but the children of the entire community. That it is right for them to call out abuses that are happening in CPS, DCS, and state and federally funded programs. I would challenge them to remember that Jesus Christ is stronger than the tax write-off. I know a lot of our churches are doing daycares and Head Starts, or they're doing feeding programs or counseling programs, and they're being subsidized with federal and state grants. But that doesn't mean that you turn a blind eye to an attack on the family. Without the family, where would the church be?
And there was one other thing that you mentioned up there. You said Jesus Christ was convicted on hearsay.
That's right.
Boy, when you said that, it was like a thunderbolt, thunderstrike. I mean, that.
Well, a lot of these case workers, these social workers, when they're in family court, they don't have to prove their allegation. They can just make it.
You heard about that case, the right to lie.
That's right. Right to lie. That's a huge problem. But it's not one that a lot of clergy, especially black clergy in the inner city, have been dealing with this for a long time. They used to be welfare workers that would come out and inspect public housing.
Right.
And they could have you ejected from public housing on hearsay.
Right.
Now, she didn't have a certain level of cleanliness. The woman was on there, and they say she was hiding a man in the welfare department and have her put out. So it's the same thing. You see the state doing the same thing because they want to get our kids, and they want to put them into the child industrial complex, which lends itself to the prison industrial complex. These children get into state custody, their brains get addled, they get addled emotionally, they're exposed to all kinds of forms of abuse, and then we get into juvenile delinquency and the incarceration of minors and just the destruction of society, especially when most of these children, 99%, can go back with a relative, can go back. A lot of these parents are saying, if you won't give me back my child, will you give my mother and my father my child?
Yeah.
And that to me, it's wrong that the state feels like they know what's best, especially when they have children sleeping on the floors of government office buildings. That proves to me that they are the real child abuser.
Yeah.
But they don't put them with relatives because they don't get as much money if they place them.
That is absolutely
it's all
correct.
About the incentives.
Yes.
The incentives are to remove the children, keep them for the timeline that they're allowed to.
Yeah.
And if they can have a psychologist or a psychiatrist deem the parent unfit, they can extend those dollars.
That's right.
And then they medicate the children because children are obviously traumatized. So then they get them therapeutically placed in these homes. And then they get more money. They get more money.
It's
a
very
monopoly
interesting.
of money. That's all it is.
So about a month and a half ago, I called up Family Services in Texas, and I said, "Tell me about how much." I'm thinking about becoming a foster parent. What exactly? How does this work? What kind of checks do you do? Stuff like that. And the money issue came up.
I went to become a foster parent before this all happened with my children. I was fostering 2 children when this happened again to me because of a divorce years ago.
Yeah.
So when this happened to me again, I had a broken child who had behavioral issues, and the system targeted me.
Yeah.
And in that sense, they've been making money for 4 years. I'm a mother of 6, and they have 1 child. 1 child in their care who now says, my mom never did anything, I'm older now, you can't bribe me anymore with toys and gifts like they were doing before,
right.
And she wants to come home. And the government is making money off of that. And my child earns them $10,000 a month for her to continue to be in care.
You've got to be kidding, $10,000 a month?
$10,000 a month for her to be in their care.
Wow.
Why don't they help me and give that money?
I know.
Or half of that money to my family.
Or a fifth of that money.
A fifth of that money, so I can get her the proper services that she needs.
Right.
And to rehabilitate my entire family, who's all been traumatized, even my other children, based on the fear that they're afraid they're going to get removed. The knock has been at my door, and I've used my constitutional rights to keep them from coming in to get my other children.
Right.
This has to stop.
Right.
Because I now have grandchildren.
Right.
And they're not coming to get those.
Yeah.
God rest my soul, I'll continue the fight.
Yeah, well, I'm here as a grandparent fighting, and it happens to be related to a CPS issue as well, and a false allegation. And like you said, you know,
Awful.
well, what I mentioned yesterday is number one, grandparents are the largest voting bloc in the United States.
That's right.
Yep.
It's time that we start to raise our voice, flex our muscles, contact. We have time too.
Yes.
Not all of us. A lot of us are still working, but we have time to say, you know what? We are maybe the big donors at the party level.
Yep.
We are the ones that can contact them. It is time that we say, you change these laws right now.
Yes.
If you let us see our
Reverend Maupin,
grandchildren.
You said a really good thing about the children end up staying in the system. I'm in Broward County, Florida, and they are completely designed to keep the children in
them in there.
DJJ.
That's right.
To keep them in the juvenile system, and as soon as they age out, they become the statistic. Jails,
The
institutions, and
taxpayers
death.
should also be concerned because they program these children to be disabled.
Right.
Yes.
They put them on disability.
Yes.
Then when they become adults, they put them in these subsidized tasks. There's a bunch of nonprofits that function
Exactly.
to manage their money,
Right.
and manage
Yes,
their medicine. It's
they
a
do.
whole industry, it's a cottage industry.
And they keep
on
their
breaking
thumb
these
on
people
them.
down. That's
Correct.
So, you know, there was interesting that you would say this. You know, there was a study done about 10 years ago by Benjamin Scafidi out of Georgia, University of Georgia or something like that. He's an economist. And he made the study, he said, on a conservative level, divorce and unwed childbearing cost the U.S. taxpayer
Yep.
at least $112 billion a year, and it could be much more. And it's
Yes.
not the cost of the family, not the emotional suffering, just the taxpayer cost.
Yes.
And you're talking about how much it costs even the taxpayers.
Yes.
And it's going to be crippling them because you have kids that can no longer have the opportunities they once had, either from the cycle of poverty or from trying to escape the trauma that they've experienced.
Yes. And the sickest part is those children that grow up, they have their own children. The system then has the right to come to the hospital
I'd take
and
them.
take
Take
the
them.
babies
I know.
directly from them.
Yeah.
Because they've already had their records deemed that they're incompetent to be able to care for
Even
their own
if
children.
they were
so they're
innocent.
kidnapping the children
Yeah.
2 days old
Yeah.
from these children who didn't choose
Yeah.
the system that they got stuck in.
Right,
So
right.
this has to stop.
Tape his talk.
I did. Oh, absolutely. It'll be up there.
And to our state.
You tape mine yesterday?
I've got yours too. I was
I don't
mixing it
have
this
your
morning.
info.
I'm Jeff Morgan.
Jeff Morgan.
Yeah, do you know Melina? Do you know Jody Mueller?
Yeah, Jody.
Oh, if you look at any of her videos, I put a number of them online.
Okay, perfect.
But
Thank you.
And our state lawmakers and our judges, we need laws, advocates all over. I want you to start working on it. I'm working
Yes.
on it. If you're in the state legislature and you vote on this funding, if you're in the governor's office and you have administrative authority over this funding, if you're a judge and you adjudicate related to child custody matters, you should have to declare it, and that should be a conflict of interest.
conflict of interest, absolutely.
No one in those industries should be working on these matters because they have a clear financial gain and bias in keeping
Yeah.
the system in place. That's
Right.
unfair.
And
Right.
do you know what's happening within our church organizations? They're being numbed and blinded into all the media and the social media that talks about foster a child today.
Right.
They
That's
have
right.
been abused. They have been neglected. 75 to 80% of those children that are in foster care
Don't need to be there.
Don't need to
Well,
be
let
there.
me tell you something. 16,000 children in Arizona estimated. I'm rounding down.
That's roughly what Florida has.
16,000 black children in Arizona, and they represent almost 20% of the children who are in CPS custody.
Yes.
But blacks are only 4% of the population of Arizona. There's something wrong with those figures.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, and across the board, it's impacting every demographic.
Correct.
But the fact that it's clearly the theft of children.
Correct.
It's clearly the theft of children, and if you need any more evidence, you look at the media studies, you look at the reports, they're public information of the child abuse that people are enduring and that children are enduring while they're in custody. What other group, what church group, what nonprofit, what private business would get so many chances to screw up with so
Screw
many
up,
of
yeah,
our kids?
I know. Can you imagine if there was a private corporation, it would happen once.
That's right.
And all of a sudden, you know, yeah. So let me ask, you've been talking about,
And these caseworkers, I got to tell you this too. Right now, they're immune from being sued
Yeah.
Because
Correct.
they're working on behalf of the state.
Yeah.
That must
Or
go.
they take the rap for the entire system when
That's
they
right.
are caught. They're the low man on the totem pole.
That's
So
right.
if somebody that has to take fault for a case that
That's
they've
right.
messed up,
Yeah.
they're the ones that take the
But
fault.
the entities themselves should not be immune from litigation.
No,
That must stop.
absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Caseworkers are supposed to have no more than 10 to 15 per caseload.
right.
In our county alone, they have 40 to 50 on their caseload. How can you properly, how can you properly handle each of those families when there's 30 days in a month and you're only going to work Monday through Friday? You
Well,
can't handle
make sure we-
15 cases properly.
And yeah, in addition
Make
to
sure
that,
we talk.
especially with investigating hearsay.
Exactly. So I have a case where there's documentation in my file that belongs to 3 other parents.
Well, that's
3 other parents' allegations are popped into my file.
unreal. So, Pastor, let me ask you one other
Yes.
question here. You talked about the child industrial complex.
Yeah.
How would you, as a pastor, address what I'm going to call the divorce industrial complex?
Well, I think the divorce industrial complex, when we're talking about working class people or poor people, one,
Well, answering as a pastor, though,
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
as my position on divorce.
Yes.
Well, I don't think any minister is in favor of divorce. I think that we want to encourage strong families and we want to encourage adults to work through whatever issues they have. And a lot of times, the problems, you don't know, the actions of a state social worker, the adverse actions of a social worker that's wrongfully enforcing public policy for as far as child public safety goes can cause a divorce.
Yeah.
When you talk about a lot of these situations where children have been removed, parents start to blame each other.
Yeah.
Even if there's no blame to go around.
Yeah.
That can cause divorce. That can cause not only divorce between husband and wife, but divorce between
Parents and children.
child and
Yeah.
grandparent and grandchild. You know, and so it's a wide definition of divorce that's impacting our families.
How might the 4th or 5th commandment, depending upon Catholic or Protestant faith, honor thy father and thy mother, how can that ever proceed after divorce, particularly if there's a step parent? How does a child know who to honor and how to respect the 4th or 5th commandment
Well,
of Christianity?
I think that we're called by God to care, as Christ said, for the widow and for the orphan.
Yes, okay. That's part of it.
And the orphan can have parents in many forms. I don't think that God designs for us simply to have just one mother and just one father. We obviously have our natural parents that gave birth to us. But I think as we live our lives, there are many people who play the role of mother and father. You
Is
know,
that biblical, though?
is it biblical? Sure, it's biblical.
Okay.
Well,
If a
Timothy
man
told
is-
Paul told Timothy that he was a son in the faith. So
Village
we
is
do have.
supposed to take care of the village.
Yeah.
That's
But
old
that's no
school.
excuse to diminish the natural parent, though.
No, absolutely not. If that's your point, no.
And I'm not lending myself to advocacy for divorce or advocacy for
Diminishing the throwaway
diminishing.
parent.
Sure,
Yeah.
I think there's a vital strength that the traditional family gives to our society and to the church.
As you said.
That's
Yeah.
undeniable.
Yeah.
That's undeniable.
Well, you look at what Jesus in Matthew 19, they asked him, you know, is it permissible to divorce a woman for any reason whatsoever? Basically, they were asking Jesus, hey, what's your opinion on no-fault divorce,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
And what did Jesus say? It was never designed to be that way from the
right.
very beginning.
That's right.
And the disciples were like, well, if it's going to be like this, you know, like, wait a minute, the natural has now become the unnatural. And you find people in the church defending the unnatural right now. Oh, that's okay, it's just divorce. No, it's a destruction of a family. It's having the impact for generations.
You know, it's kind of like abortion. You know, I don't believe anyone is for an abortion.
Right.
When you actually think about what it is, no
do
one
you?
is for that.
Who can actually be for that, yeah.
Right. But we as a church have to be against poverty. We have to be against the lack of education. We have to be for pre and postnatal care. I tell my Catholic brothers and sisters all the time, I don't want to meet you at the abortion clinic. We failed already. That's the graveyard. We got to meet each other in the hospital. We got to meet each other in the elementary schools. We got to meet each other in the neighborhoods, in the welfare lines, and the unemployment lines. That's where we save life. Like
Yeah.
the abortion clinic, that's a cemetery.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. A very good point, very well made. So, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. I'm getting a little bit tired of walking
Just that
backwards
we
here.
gotta stand together. We gotta be strong. This is affecting everybody. I think there are a lot of people who are sometimes skeptical about issues of advocacy. But let me tell you, anytime you see Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, Green Party, No Party, far left, far right, red, yellow, black, brown, and white, rich, poor, tall, short, fat, skinny. You got all kinds of people out here. So that should tell you that something is wrong. If there's something that's adversely affecting everybody, it should tell you that something is wrong. Something is wrong.
Right.
And we need more people now, more than ever, especially people of faith, to stand up, to take a position on this, and to make sure that we're protecting our children. This is the future of our country. And if we don't protect them, we're going to be in bad shape.
And Pastor, just to add one quick thing, you talked about a little bit about poverty and so on.
That's right.
The greatest antidote to poverty is an intact family.
That's right.
Wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for being here.
I came from a nuclear family. I think every child deserves that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's the greatest blessing that parents should give, and
That's right.
And children should have the right for that. Thank you so much.
You see,